My name is Ehlenberger. I'm an artist working with neon as my primary element, but I incorporate glass and metal and other materials. My career, as it were, in doing neon art started when I was a physician in training. I was an emergency medicine specialist doing my training. And one day I was sitting in a restaurant waiting for a friend, and I was sitting up close to a neon sign that was hung in the window. And I think probably for the first time ever, I had a very close-up look at a neon tube. And I just was fascinated with the glow coming from the tube. And I just found myself interested in neon, and over the next few weeks began to think about neon and wondered at that time why artists didn't use neon with sculpture. I thought it would be an interesting element to add to sculpture. I didn't realize, of course, that there were artists out there using neon, but I hadn't seen it. I would go to local art galleries and museums from time to time, but don't think I ever saw any artwork with neon in it. So after, I think, a few weeks of wondering about why someone doesn't do neon in art and more commercial or residential lighting, I decided I would learn how to do neon. So I looked up in a Yellow Pages and called the closest sign shop to where I lived. And I was lucky to have on my first call a positive response. It was a couple. The wife did the neon in the sign business. The husband did the sign installations and design. It was a couple named Caroline and Bill Cross, and they had a Great Dane. She was a nurse who had quit nursing to do neon. So I grew up with a Great Dane. So we had a number of things in common. So they just said, come on over to the sign shop and we'll teach you. So over the next year, while I was doing my emergency medicine training on evenings and weekends, they let me use their business shop, and I practiced neon. And after about a year, she declared I was finished with my apprenticeship, as it were, and about that time, they decided to retire. So I ended up purchasing their equipment and moving it to a studio in an old fire station that I lived in. So I was lucky to have a space that I could live upstairs and have a neon studio downstairs. That was in about 1985 or so. And I finished my emergency medicine residency and my neon apprenticeship when I turned 30. That all happened about the same time. So since then, I've continued to practice medicine full-time. Initially, I stayed in emergency medicine for 30 years. And as an emergency medicine doctor, you can schedule your time fairly easily and often work 12 or 24-hour shifts. And it left me a lot of spare time. So I would do the neon on my spare time. About 10 years ago, I retired from emergency medicine and bought a clinic, and now I specialize in chronic pain and addiction. So I have a solo practice in that, and after getting more training there, I'm still working full-time plus as a physician, but I do the neon on weekends and the evenings, and I have a couple of assistants who help me in the neon studio. So that's where I'm at right now. Actually, I'm kind of having to renovate my studio. I have an old church that I bought a few years ago. It's a big old church built in 1852 here in New Orleans. It's a large church. It's 10,000 square foot. So I have a large installation space upstairs that functions as a gallery, and then my studio is downstairs. So we've been renovating that and recently having to do a bunch of repairs after Hurricane Ida last month. So we're still fixing up the roof and all. But I'm hoping to get started on doing more public art and lighting. My home was demolished 2 years ago when a tornado hit it, and we're in the process now of finishing up rebuilding the home, and I've designed all the interior lighting and sculpture and exterior lighting for the house. So my time is focused on that right now. I've put together about 100 pieces for the house. So that's where I am now, and hopefully after the turn of the year, when the house is completed and all that work is done, I'm going to begin again putting together some new series of artwork and some more interior lighting pieces.
At the beginning, what were your pieces? Did you get into similar work that you're doing now, or you started with different kind of artwork?
Actually, what I liked in the art world at the time were the Russian constructivist sculptors around the 1920s time. There was a number of constructivists whose sculptures I liked, and they incorporated found objects. There was a lot of geometric shapes, and I liked those, and I always thought, actually, even in the beginning, that sculptures of that nature could be enhanced visually by engaging or incorporating neon behind and as well as exposed in the three-dimensional shapes. So I started off by doing pieces like that. I would go to some scrap yards in the area, metal scrap yards, and I would get a bunch of found pieces of scrap metal, and I just started working with that primarily, and also using new aluminum sheet. So most of my initial pieces were metal and neon. I became interested in using glass, though, because I liked how glass could be illuminated with neon and provide some contrasting visuals with that. So I started using flat glass initially and slumped glass, used the kiln to slump glass and get some shapes with that. And then I took a course in glass blowing and started using blown glass. So now I incorporate a lot of blown glass with the neon and the metal. And my works now are still, a lot of it is constructivist, but some of it is more minimalist, some of the more recent work. But I still tend to lean towards a constructivist style.
I noticed that you love jellyfish.
Yeah, I kind of do. I grew up in Southern California as a surfer, and I didn't love jellyfish then. But I was designing a series of sculptures based on the theme of a Venusian world in which the Venusian fauna and flora were luminous. And I was designing pieces that were plant-like in nature with curved pieces of aluminum and blown glass and neon. And I designed one piece that had 3 central neon tubes coming up from the blown glass. And as I looked at it, I thought, wow, that would look good if I hung it upside down. And when I hung it upside down and from the ceiling, it looked a lot like a jellyfish. So it became a jellyfish. It really wasn't intended to be in the very beginning. But it was really a good marriage of materials, because the blown glass and the neon elements work very well together. And this series of jellyfish has been what I've been best known for. I guess that's my most popular piece. But it's all part of a Venusian series, actually, and which is the name of my art gallery is Venusian Gardens Art Gallery. And the idea was to create a big installation in the gallery of a fantasy Venus with Venusian luminous plants and the jellyfish.
And you seem to be based both in New Orleans and San Francisco.
I was, until I got married. I got married a while back, and I couldn't split my time anymore. At that time, I was able to work in an emergency room in San Francisco and one in New Orleans. So I split my time back and forth, and I opened a gallery in San Francisco called Venusian Gardens West. But that lifestyle came to an end when I got married, so I closed the gallery in San Francisco, and I just have the one place now.
Let's talk about your floor and table sculptures.
Most of the floor sculptures, I guess, are really more constructivist. They are, it takes us to engage different elements from flat glass to different types of aluminum that might be U-channel, or it might be aluminum that I've cut into shapes, and then I roll them with a metal roller to get a three-dimensional curving shapes to them. Some of them remain in the constructivist style. Others are part of the flora component of the Venusian world, so they're plant-like pieces. Those are mostly aluminum or blown glass with neon engaged somehow behind or penetrating up from the glass or the metal. The design of the table pieces especially, but also the floor pieces, the design of those allows the user to switch out the components. So the neon tube is designed to just pop in with a quick connect feature using some standard Pyrex glass housings from the neon sign industry. So the tube will be held into the Pyrex housing with a grommet, and it can be pulled out and switched and replaced easily. The blown glass pieces, similarly, are really adhered to the base with museum gel, which holds it securely, but it also allows it to be easily removed. So the bases can be stable bases, but the user can then come and switch out different pieces to their liking. So if they bought more than one tube, or if I'm doing an installation, I can change the nature and appearance of the pieces. Some of the floor pieces might engage 12 neon tubes and multiple blown glass vase-like shapes or bowl-like shapes in which the neon comes up from below. Sometimes I use cutouts in the aluminum with pieces of chunks of glass underlit below with the neon, so the blown glass or the neon arise out of a luminous, pond-like appearance. And sometimes I use uranium glass, which is kind of the pale yellow-green, and then I underlight it with neon that gives off a lot of ultraviolet, so the uranium glass fluoresces and has its own glow, so it keeps kind of that otherworldly look to it. didn't have time to prepare, of course, for the interview, so it's in full work mode as we are proceeding with the pieces, but there's enough here, I think, to demonstrate. So let's see. This is a piece with, it's one of the Venusian flora. As you can see, the metal aluminum is cut in shapes and then curved, and then I have neon tubes coming out around it. So this is one of the wall flora, Venusian wall flora pieces. The final installation that I'm working on that'll be at my house will incorporate maybe 10 or 15 of these pieces on the wall. Over here, we have a piece. So let's see. There, do you see where it's a piece of blown glass as a base and then a neon tube coming up out of the center? That's one of the tabletop pieces that's part of the Flora series. This is a suspended sculpture. Let's see. Hard for me to tell what you can see here. Do you see the, yeah, I think you can see pretty well. This is suspended, a circular base with stones in the center, and then there are elements of neon and blown glass. And those wood pieces are cypress knees that are just sanded and finished. So this is sort of a mini garden, a mini Venusian garden. Let's see. This is another type of tabletop piece with blown glass and aluminum and a central tube coming up. Let's see. And this is an example of a table piece of similar style to the wall piece. Is that showing here? And then this one here. So I'm sorry, I would have set things up had I realized. Here's some 3 jellyfish. And I can take you upstairs to the gallery and we can look at a lot more pieces. This is just the studio where I kind of have things stored. I'm working on a project now. What I'm showing you now behind me, you can see columns of neon tubing. And what I'm working on now, we're not quite finished with it, but I've got 7 columns of neon tubes that are about 16 inches in width. And there's, I guess, probably about 400 now tubes, and they all are different tubing that are available in the past and present. Some of them are no longer made. And again, some more of the jellyfish you can see here. This is an older piece on the wall that's, I'm not sure it's quite constructivist in nature. Can you see that one okay? Yeah, it's just using different found objects in neon. This is one of the light pieces, interior lighting pieces that just incorporate some antique glass light fixtures that I've backlit with neon. I'm going to grab my phone so we don't lose our connection, and I'll take you upstairs to the gallery. Actually, before I do that, there is one piece, little installation that I think is kind of interesting. This is the front office in my gallery, and you can see what I have here are some neon tubes coming up. These are special tubes where I've twisted the neon tubing while it's still hot, and it creates 2 different channels for the light to come through. Beneath it, I have uranium glass marbles that are underlit with black light neon tubes. So the marbles give that characteristic fluorescence that uranium glass does. is one of the floor pieces of constructed style very early. This piece here, move this out of the way. Let's see. This piece here with the blue neon tube is, I entitled it Blue Wisdom. It was the very first sculpture I ever made in 1985. So I've held on to that. This is a table version of the jellyfish and another floor piece of the constructivist style. This piece here is a Venusian landscape with aluminum and backlit neon, and there's silicone sandwiched between our backlit with the neon to create a water body image in the landscape. And this piece here is one of the newer pieces that's more minimalist, in which there are two 15mm neon tubes, and behind those tubes are 6, you get a different backlighting than what you see from the front. So it doesn't make sense when you look at a blue tube and it's got a red glow. So that was the idea behind that series. Now I'm going to walk you upstairs to the gallery. Pardon the mess. As I said, we're renovating from the damage from the hurricane. So this is the space. Unfortunately, during the daytime, it's difficult to appreciate the neon glow. This is another example of the newer series. This one and this one. Are they coming through okay? This is over here, kind of hidden behind, is a constructivist piece from an earlier series referred to as a tectonic. And this is another of my interior lighting pieces with old antique glass fixture. And that's an installation of I made a few years ago. Let's see. Another constructivist piece. This piece is interesting because you can see up close this neon tube is made with ribbed glass. So the surface of the neon tube is not smooth but ribbed. It's created by pulling the hot glass through a mold to get a ribbed cross section. Oh, this is best appreciated at night. The glow behind the aluminum doesn't show up well in the direct light. This is a little bit broken, but this is a large a landscape type piece, but we had some electrical problems from the storm, so I have to replace some of the transformers. And this is another piece. We've got some workers here taking a break. There's some more of the tectonic series. And another piece here. We've got an old series. When I was working in San Francisco, I worked with a lot of silicone. So these are pieces that have sheets of silicone with backlighting from the neon. And this again, they're a bit more effective at night. You got a better luminous character to it. The silicone acts in a way to kind of mimic watercolors, where you get a blending of the color from the neon light, the way you see with watercolor paints. And that's what I liked about using the silicone. Let's see. These are all future ceiling pieces that are going to go in at my house when the house is finished. I don't have any finish to show you though. And some more pieces in the corner. Let's see. I got a few more pieces to show you, and there's a third floor to the gallery. So you can see we're up above, overlooking the gallery now, where we're doing the construction. And this is a place we rent the gallery out for special events, weddings and meetings, pharmaceutical meetings. Let's see. This is one of the cloud pieces, but like a lot of the work, it's best viewed at night when there's a bit of a more darkness. Here's a workshop room, the hanging piece. And these are very early constructivist pieces. This one here, this was made with a magnesium rake used for asphalt, I think. I got it in the scrapyards. So, I think that's about it. These are pieces that haven't been fully assembled, but you can see the Pyrex housing, so I would be putting neon tubes coming out of those. And then there may be blown glass features as well. That's one of those lake type things you can see. I haven't put the glass in or the tubing yet.
How do you select your metal?
Well, I prefer the aluminum because it's lightweight and pretty easy to cut. So I use mostly aluminum. If I can get found pieces, sometimes I'll use copper because, you know, copper is such a beautiful metal. So when that's feasible, I'll incorporate copper as well. But I'm pretty limited to just copper and aluminum as the metal. I plan on doing some outdoor pieces at the house, and they might be done with aluminum, but I'm also thinking I may use steel for those. So I think that's about it. You can see there's 16 jellyfish hanging up there, but there's photographs taken of them at night that I can send you if you like, or they can be seen on my website, ehlenberger.com.
You are doing both abstract artwork and more representational art.
Some of the landscape pieces are representational, mostly abstract. These, I didn't show you earlier, these aluminum rings, these are based of what will be individual garden type pieces that, like this suspended piece, there will be elements of neon glass and all coming up out of them. This is part of a large Venusian Gardens installation that'll go into my living room at our new house. One of my favorite constructivist pieces, which is, it's actually fairly recent, but it's got that yellowish green glass in the back there is made from uranium glass. So on close, if you look at it closely, I'm not sure we can demonstrate it, but the wall of the glass has a peculiar fluorescence to it that makes this kind of tube, an aluminum uranium tube, particularly beautiful. And this is ruby red glass. It's an old ruby that gives a very deep red. That I face as a neon artist.
About the gases that you use for your neon.
There are a number of gases that are available. The common denominator is that they need to be one of the inert gases, which is in the far right column on the periodic table. The inert gases, their electron shells keep them from being reactive with other elements. So when you put a gas in a glass tube and run electricity through it, the gas does not react with the metal in the electrodes, and therefore the tube will stay lit and it won't burn out. It won't affect the electrodes. It's going to be probably the gas used in most neon tubes that are red or orange. Now, the other gases are krypton, which is a pale silver colored, almost white gas. Argon, which is a pale lavender, xenon, which is a pale blue, and helium, which is kind of a flesh tone. Those gases aren't used as much because they're not as bright. And helium tends to have greater resistance, although it's fairly bright. It doesn't allow for as much footage. So most of the colors are obtained by using argon gas that is a pale lavender by itself, but in the processing of a neon tube that uses argon gas, you put a drop of mercury in there. The mercury vaporizes within the tube and it gives off a brighter blue color, so the gas itself becomes a brighter kind of a light blue, but it gives off a lot of UV wavelength. So the neon tubes that provide most of the colors, all of the yellows and pinks and greens, a lot of the blues, purples, all of those colors mostly are going to come from the use of fluorescent powders that are coated inside the neon tubing, and then the mercury gas is used as the gas, and that's how you get your colors. Now, the tubing itself can be clear glass, which is 90% of the time, but if you use tubing that's made with colored glass, you can get particularly deeper and more intense colors. Commercially, there's only a few colors: orange, red, green, and blue. Those are the only colored glass tubing commercially available. I'm hoping within the next year or so to get my kiln up and running and a hot tank, so I'll be able to pull my own tubes, and then I can pull tubes of whatever color I want. That's planned for next year, I hope. But that's how you get colors in the tubes.
For someone who would like to have an Ehlenberger sculpture in their home, how should they take care of it?
Well, my email and my phone number are on my website, ehlenberger.com, and they just need to contact me. I've shipped pieces all over the world, including France. In fact, I had a gallery representation in Nice for a while until they retired and closed their gallery. But the pieces ship much more easily than you'd expect. All of my pieces are designed to be disassembled whenever possible. So the jellyfish, for example, the tentacles are disassembled without any tools. They're very easy. They just pull out with quick connects. So when I ship a jellyfish, the body is shipped separately. You can contact me, and we do ship worldwide without problems.